Okay, we're going to get started here. My name is Richard Patrick. You've probably been to our website and seen some of the information that we have to offer, and that's why we're here today. Forgive me as I make a few audio adjustments. Uh, what we're going to cover, we'll talk about how to solve the college funding problem, how to lower your college costs, how to qualify for more financial aid, whether it's need-based or non-need-based, and what you can do to lower your costs even if you don't qualify for financial aid. Oftentimes we find that we save people sometimes more money in helping them pay for college in the correct fashion than they even get from the colleges themselves. If that was a little confusing, let me just give you an example. We had one family who was told over and over again by their advisor not to bother filling out the financial aid forms. They didn't think they qualified for any aid. However, what we were able to do was show them how they could get their assets out of the financial aid formula. They ended up qualifying for or getting $15,000 a year in financial aid, and $12,000 of that, about $12,000, was free money. That's every year at UC Berkeley. Now, if 4 years it's 48,000, 5 years is 55, 6 years, obviously over $60,000. However, just by showing them the correct portion to pay, or the correct way to pay their share, they're going to save more than $85,000 a year. I'm sorry, over the total time. So just in 1 year, that's $95,000 of savings that they'll have. Okay, so again, as a recap, they were told initially that they had too much in the way of assets. They had rental property, cash in the bank, stocks. They had a lot of equity in their primary residence, and they were told that they should not bother filling out the financial aid forms. And again, the thing that I really want to hit home is you can't. Free money is great. Everybody gets enamored with free money. However, most of you are not going to get a free ride. So the biggest thing that you need to really need to pay attention to tonight is how to fund your share and how to find the schools. And we're going to go over all that. So if some of you already have children that have been through the college process, or you've been through the college application process, the first part may be a little boring for you, but stick with me, and towards the middle we'll get through a lot of meat. But I have to go through this as though people really have never been through the process before. Okay, so let's get started. Now, one of the biggest concerns that most parents have when they come in to see us, they're concerned about missing deadlines, making mistakes, developing a plan to pay for college, and not wanting to do everything on their own. The forms are fairly confusing, and just one mistake could cost you a lot of money. So most people, unfortunately, don't even have a plan to pay for college. Okay, and those that do, more often than not, they're going about it the wrong way. And again, I mentioned the example of the family that was going to make an $80,000 mistake in the way they were going to pay for college. So we were able to show them by paying for college a certain way, they'd have $80,000 additional in the bank when they're done. Okay, and that's not even including the financial aid we're able to get them. Okay, now why is it so ridiculously expensive? College is very expensive now. There's less aid from government sources. The other thing that you have to be concerned about is most people that live in the Bay Area and own a home, you're probably not, most I should say, not all, but most are not going to qualify for most government aid, Cal grants, and things of that nature. However, there are other sources, and we'll get into that as well. And of course, college costs are increasing faster than inflation rates. Now, in this economy, you may think, oh, colleges will be more generous. In some cases, they're not. In some cases, they are. And we'll get into which types of schools are more generous. is pretty much going to cost you, this is incorrect, it's going to cost at least $80,000 a year. Now this is the cost of tuition, not the total cost of attendance. Now, there's some things that you guys are going to need to pay attention to, and this is one of them. We're going to go over COA and EFC. If you have a pen, write that down. COA, which stands for cost of attendance, and EFC, which stands for expected family contribution. That is a formula that the government has put together, the schools have put together, where they determine how much you can pay for college. Now, the same entity that came up with this formula thinks that a family of four can survive on $27,000. That may be true in some parts of the Bay Area, but if you own a home, that's next to impossible. In some cases, even if you don't. Of course, there are some people that do that, but for the most part, a lot of our clients are not even surviving on 80 to 100 or 150,000, or let alone 200,000 in some cases. So you really need to get a hold of what your cost is. So if you don't know what your EFC is, how do you know whether or not you get a fair offer from a college? How do you know how much aid you should be looking for from each individual school? Okay, so that's a very important number for you to know, and you have to know that. And there are ways to lower it. There's only, usually for each client, there's two to three ways that we lower the EFC, but there's at least 78 different ways to lower your EFC. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide here. Okay, so, well, actually, if I can go back up to the previous slide. The private schools could cost you $50,000 or more. Yeah, I think the most expensive school now is close to $58,000 a year. So, even if you're there for only 4 years, and here's another trivia question that we're going to ask. What do you think is the average amount of time that it takes to graduate for most students? You got private schools and public schools. Think about that. So here are the numbers. At a public school, it's about 5.8 years on average. One of the counselors at UCSB, and usually it's not as bad as at the UCs, but the folks at UCSB said at orientation, be prepared to be here for about 6 years. And the reason is, one of the reasons, remediation, which means the students are not as prepared as they thought they were for college level courses. But the main reason is class availability. Okay, so it may take a little bit longer. In some cases, they're standing room only. So it's going to take a little bit longer to graduate from a public school than it is a private school. Now, how is a family supposed to pay for all those costs that we covered here? From 80, at San Jose State, the cost of attendance is at least $20,000 if you're going to stay on campus. Private schools are more than $200,000 or $250,000 at the most expensive schools. Savings, borrow, scholarship. There are several sources of money, and we'll go over that later. But I want you to pay attention to private scholarships are usually, what percentage of the total financial aid pie do you think private scholarships make up? It's less than 2%. Most of the money that you're going to get is coming from the schools directly. So how are you going to pay for that? Savings. Most families that we see have about $10,000 on average, about $10,000 per child saved for college. Or they may have enough money to pay for the first 2 years, but not all 4. And at a private school, the average is about 4.25 years. So most people don't have that. And I don't care if they're $40,000 a year librarians or partners at law firms, folks just, for the most part, don't have the money. And the ones that do, we generally show them how, or show you how to lower your costs. So do you go to a lesser school? Do you not go at all? Those are things that we help our clients avoid. Now, if you're going to pay over $200,000, we have a consultation form that should be included in your email at our private, or at our one-on-one workshops or live workshops. It's included in the package. However, if you have savings, you need to get that savings out of the financial aid formula if necessary, if appropriate. Okay, we don't know if it's appropriate for you or not. We never recommend. There's no one solution for everybody. Each and every family situation is different. $10,000 in savings above your asset allowance, your asset protection allowance, could cost you anywhere from $500 to $3,500 in college money. You need to know that before you apply, which assets are included. And I'll get into it quickly here. At private schools, they look at your home equity. Most private schools, the schools that make you fill out the CSS profile. There's two forms. There's the FAFSA and the CSS profile. FAFSA is F as in Frank, AF, S as in Sam, A. That's a free application for federal student aid. You must fill that out. I don't care what the counselors say, the high school counselors, your CPA, your stockbroker, your brother-in-law, your sister, whoever. Fill out the forms regardless of your income or assets. To get any money, even if it's non-need based. We're going to go over non-need based aid as well as need-based aid. You must fill those forms out. Okay? Even if you want student loans, get those forms filled out. I don't care what anybody says. Believe me. Okay. Or borrow. There's several different ways to borrow the money for college. Some are tax deductible. There are Parent Plus loans. When you're looking at and evaluating your financial aid offer, you need to be careful about the direct parent loan or the plus loan. Write this down. Parent loan for undergraduate students plus. We really only recommend you take that if, in fact, it's your last resort to pay for college and you'll be able to pay it off. Sometimes we advise clients, very rarely we advise them to take those loans because there may be a way to pay them off later. But we're talking, with all the talk in the news in the last couple of years that got us into this mess, some of the predatory lending and subprime loans. Do you know what the costs, the interest rates, and the fees are for a plus loan? And some of the schools are sneaky. They'll sneak it in your package. Like, say, for instance, you'll have some free money, a scholarship, a grant, a fellowship grant, and then they'll have another student loan, a Perkins loan, a Stafford loan, and then they'll say direct parent loan or plus loan. That loan the interest rate is 8.5%. It's a 10-year term, and it's 4 points. 4%. The origination fee is 4% of the loan amount. Okay, so it's like taking out a 10-year mortgage every semester. Okay, so with a Parent Plus loan, for every $20,000 you borrow, let's say you're going to your kid's going to attend a $40,000 a year school. You have $20,000. Or even if you don't have $20,000, just say you borrow $20,000. For every $20,000 that you borrow, your payments are going to be roughly $250 a month. That's $247.97. Okay, so these are 10-year payments. So let's just say you borrow $20,000 a year. By the time you're done, you're paying $991 per month. So you need to know what your budget is. If that's your way of paying for college, and it's going to last for 10 years, and it'll be 4 years before the first $247 drops off. So 4 years from now, let's just say you started, then your payments will go to $744, then they'll drop by $247 a year after your first 4 years, depending on how. After your for after 6 years. And then they'll start to drop. So anyway, if you have any questions, send me an email and we can go in depth on that. Feel free to email your questions, because if you have them, we'll be more than happy to respond to those questions. Okay, we already talked about this a little bit. The percentage of, there's $169 billion available in aid, and again, 2% or less than 2% came from private scholarships. If you want a source for private scholarships, go to fastweb.com. It's a mind-numbing array of scholarships there. Our next slide talks about not going. Obviously, we don't agree with that, because there are several different ways to lower your costs. You just really need to delve into it or work with somebody that knows how to get you and solve a college funding problem. Now, let's talk about some of the myths. We get a lot of these, and they come from all different places. But your income's too high. Again, there's need-based and non-need-based aid. You just need to know where to look, what schools, what the school's history is. These are questions you need to ask each and every school. Make sure you write these down. What is your average financial aid package? What percentage is free money versus self-help? Okay. There's two types of financial aid, obviously, free money and self-help. You want as much free money as possible. Grants, scholarships, things of that nature. Self-help is student loans, work study, parent plus loans, things of that nature. Okay. Now, there are schools that'll take families, especially in the Midwest. If you have low grades, or there are some smaller schools, if you have low grades, those schools really want families, and they know that some kids just maybe weren't all that serious in high school, or maybe had some issues. There's learning disabilities. There's schools that specialize in kids with learning disabilities. If you own a home, I gave an example of a family that owned several homes in different states, and they still qualified for aid. And the aid is only for special groups. Some people have mistaken notion that only minorities and certain ethnicities get financial aid, and it's not true. And that it's an easy process. I mean, very rarely is it easy. It's a complicated process. And I talked about where it says here, school people can help. Go ahead and add, advisors. Now again, don't have anything against CPAs, financial planners, stockbrokers, whoever. As a matter of fact, I refer my clients to CPAs and financial advisors to get some of their assets out of the formula, to take care of the tax provisions that are available for families to lower their college costs. There's so many different pieces of the puzzle that put together your college plan. I mean, there's taxes, your cash flow plan, making sure your mortgage is being used properly, because sometimes I see families with 15-year loans and they have no money or hardly any money in the bank. You're usually better off with a 30-year mortgage and saving the money in a safe account, not in a volatile stock or mutual fund or something like that, where you can actually lose the money that you're going to use to pay your house off. But if you don't have money, you probably, and again, there's no one rule that works for everybody, but you probably shouldn't have a 15-year mortgage. At least have somebody look at it and make sure you're not going down the road you're not driving down the road to your destination with your foot on the brake and the gas at the same time. You're just hurting yourself in some cases here. All right, we already talked about how much aid is available. How do they determine if you're eligible? Again, we talked about this earlier. COA, cost of attendance. That includes everything: books, room and board. Then you got to factor in travel, flights. Hey, I want to go to, Vail or Colorado, Tahoe, Cancun, all that stuff. You have to factor everything in. And speaking of out of town or even in town, safety is really, really, really important, especially for our female clients, to make sure somebody knows where you are at all times. You never, make sure your kids pay attention. Don't drink anything that they didn't see, poured at a party. That stuff's really important. We had several instances where students were assaulted, and there's just so many different situations and ways to get in trouble that you may not even be aware of. So go through everything with them and make sure that they're being safe and protected. Now, EFC, expected family contributions, several different factors, based on several different factors. Parent and students' income, assets, ages, number of people in school. That's also very important. So, all those factors go into, making up your EFC and your need. So let's just say here, the cost of attendance, let's just say it's $30,000 for Berkeley, and your EFC is $20,000. Your need is 10. Now, the other question, I don't think I got back to this earlier. The question you need to ask is, how much need, what percentage of need do you meet? What percent, these are questions you need to ask the financial aid officers, or find it somewhere online, in a book, a magazine. What percentage of need do they meet? And we have software that walks all of our clients through this. We also offer an initial consultation, which is pretty much a continuation of this workshop, but it's geared specifically for your situation based on your income, everything. We go through all this information here. Your student income, your assets, ages. And that way we calculate what your EFC is. And if it's appropriate, we'll tell you we'll calculate it if it's appropriate, if we can lower it. If we can't lower it, we'll just try and come up with the best strategy. But for the most part, for most of our clients, we can lower the EFC. So again, going back to what questions you need to ask the schools. What percentage is free money of the package financial aid packages you award? What percentage is free money, and what percentage is self-help? And how much what percentage of need do you meet? You need to know that, because let's just say, for instance, you've got a school like, let's just say UC Davis or UCSB. They may only meet 50 or 60% of your need. And even Notre Dame, they're not a school like Notre Dame, a private school. They don't always meet 100% of your need. But there are other schools that are very generous with their aid. So you need to know, let's just say, for instance, you're looking at a $40,000 a year school, and your need is 25 or 30,000. A lot of schools meet 100% of your need, and 80% of that could be free money. So it could actually be cheaper to attend a private school than it would be a public school. Because look, the other factor is, you may get out of a private school sooner than you will, your student may graduate sooner at a private school than they will at a public school. So not only do private schools give you more money, however, you're also going to graduate sooner. The other thing that some of the schools do is, this is a business. You need to keep that in mind. They want to see how little they can give you to get you there. So that's where, knowing your EFC, if they under award you, you can actually negotiate. And I'll show you some negotiation letters. We'll send you that via email, as well as show you some examples of negotiation awards that we've been able to increase by negotiating. Okay, so need is how much aid the family is eligible for, and there's 3 categories of families when it comes to need. One with total financial need, they'll get aid at pretty much every school, assuming there's money and they get everything done on time and done correctly. You get the maximum amount of free money. There's total financial need. Then there's some with partial financial need, which is the majority, a large portion of our clients. Most of our clients are not going to get a full ride. So as Category 2, and there's Category 3, families that make too much money or have too much in the way of assets. But even for our Category 2 families, there's a lot of ways you can get merit-based money. Okay? You need to know which specific scholarships at each specific school, based on your child's academic profile, you qualify for. Okay? We can help you with that. So not only can we help you find merit-based money, but we can show you how to pay your portion. Most of the money that you will save, whether you're in Category 2 or Category 3, is in the way you pay your share. Free money's great and sexy and exciting, but most of you are going to have to pay a large chunk of change out of your own pocket to pay for college. And the way you pay for it is very, very, very important to your retirement, your future, your lifestyle. And we want to help you do this without severely cramping your lifestyle. Now, what you'd have to earn or cover pre-tax in order to pay $200,000, and again, the lowest amount you're probably going to end up paying is $70,000, which is going to take you at least $100,000 up to $116,000 just to pay for that. The other bad thing that we see people doing is taking money out of their retirement accounts. There may be a way to do that where it's advantageous, but for the most part, it can be financial disaster, because not only do you have to take out so much more money just to pay for college, but the money you take out could be treated as income, which would increase your EFC. So it could be a double whammy. So if you're thinking about doing that, you really need to come sit down with us. And again, when you come sit down with us or talk to us over the phone, do a consultation, there's no pressure. Either I can help you or I can't. I only work with families for whom I can have a huge impact. When I say huge impact, it's $20,000 or more. Some families we save $10,000 or $12,000, but usually it's at least $20,000 to $24,000 on average. So sometimes it's even a couple $100,000 if you have multiple children. So you really need to, if you're thinking about paying cash or you're going to pay from your cash flow, look at what you have to earn in order to pay for college, and there's ways to beat that. Okay, so if you're looking at this, if you're paying $200,000, look at the financial impact of paying that. Instead of paying that to a college, you could have almost $500,000 in the bank just by going about the process correctly. Again, this next slide. Again, these Parent Plus loans are the ones we talked about earlier. The Perkins loans and the subsidized Stafford loans, you really want to take. We very rarely advise you not to take subsidized Stafford loans because the interest is deferred. Interest and payments are deferred. I don't know how in the world I did that. Okay, so work study, and there's special grants that they have here, Pell grants. A lot of people don't qualify for those, are our clients at least, but we'll help. If you do qualify, we'll help you get it. So that way you don't miss any money. Federal government, most of your money is not going to come from federal government, state government. At the most, you're looking at about $10,000, and doesn't even make it helps. Don't get me wrong, but it's not. Most of the money is going to come from the schools themselves. Okay. Colleges and the university. So you got to pick the right schools. Very important. Now the other thing that's available to you, we'll give you, there's a report that shows you the historical figures on financial aid for each school. We'll give you one of those, a school report for the number one school on your list. And I'll pull up an example here quickly. Okay, here's an example of an email I received. This family didn't qualify for anything at first, and they only received about $7,000 in aid. So we wrote an appeal letter and they increase it by 9,000 to 16,000, as you can see here. So, but pay attention to the last part here. Send me the info on how we're going to pay for this and what our next steps are. Okay. So, they still had about $20,000 to pay for out of pocket over the next 4 or 5 years. So it was great that we were able to get $16,000 a year, but there's still at least $80,000 that we need to cover, and what's the best way to cover that? So that's really important that we look into that. Oops. Okay. So how do you apply? I said before, you must fill out this FAFSA. I don't care what anybody says. Fill it out. You'll be glad you did. Even if you don't get anything, it's worth a shot. If you don't do it, you're guaranteed not to get anything. So you can't get the federal loans if you don't do it. If you don't do it right. The other thing you don't want to do is put more than 10 schools on the FAFSA and start taking schools off and removing them. So narrow it down to 10. 6 to 8 is a good number of schools, because that way you can compare financial aid offers and negotiate if necessary. Okay, if you're under awarded, we will help you negotiate. Now we've had some families that, like say for instance, there's a family that got money from USC, and they were expecting to get USC was I think $52,000 or $53,000 at the time, and they got about $28,000 in aid. They were hoping for 35 or 40. Okay. They really shouldn't have gotten anything because they owned a successful business, properties, cash, but still cash. Coming up with the cash to pay for all that would have been difficult. And a lot of the wealth was paper wealth, but the school still assessed that. So they really shouldn't have gotten much, and she was going to ask for a lot more. And they actually gave her more than what her actual EFC or what she was eligible for. They gave her more than her need, and she was going to send a letter. And I'm glad she called before she sent the letter, because I stopped her. And which if they would have dug a little bit deeper, or I shouldn't say dig a little deeper, but if they could have rejected it, and that's happened before. So you don't want to misrepresent everything. Everything that we tell you to do is we do it legally, morally, and ethically. It's all according to the book, the Department of Education's guidelines. The family that I mentioned to you before, and some of the recommendations we made to them, they just, we don't think that's going to work. They were telling us that, and I pointed out to them, look, it's right here in the guidelines. This will work. Regardless of what your accountant says. I sent them to my own accountant that I refer folks to. An accountant in Alameda. He set everything up for them, and they got money. So, but again, the free money is great, but you're probably going to pay more out of pocket. And you really need to pay attention to that. All public schools use the FAFSA. You're going to need to fill it out for the private schools as well, because you're going to need information from the FAFSA to put on a profile. The other thing, most private schools have you fill out the CSS profile. Okay, this is like a tax return with questions. They're very probing. Some schools want to know the value of your vehicles or cars. Not all of them. I think it's Davison that wants to know the value of your cars, and there's a couple of others. Some schools may want to know who else can help you pay for college. So make sure that your student's not filling this out without your supervision. Or if you want us to do it for you, we'll do it for you and make sure it's done correctly. So we'll do all the other forms as well, all the school forms. Sometimes they want you to fill out a budget just so they can see where the money's going. So they have to be consistent. Your FAFSA and your profile have to be consistent, and they'll ask similar questions. Okay. Now you can do all this on your own. It's usually about 5 or 9 forms. Could take 20. I had one lady that came in and said she took it in her first year. You have to do this every year, by the way. In her first year, it took her 40 hours. Most people don't take that long, but it could take 20 to 30 hours to fill out the forms. and about 65 to 75% are completed incorrectly. All right, so you need to know which colleges give you the best shot at getting money. Okay, again, we talked about this earlier. Just so you know, some schools meet 100% of need, others only meet 30 to 50%. Most public schools don't meet most of your need. So even if your need is 15,000 and they only meet 50% of your need, say for instance your financial contribution is only 5,000. 12,005 is your new EFC if the cost is 20. So let's break this down again. Just for round numbers, let's just say your need is $20,000, but the school only meets half. That's $10,000 additional money that you're going to need to come up with because they're not going to meet all your need. So again, private schools, find out what percentage of your need they'll meet. Okay. We talked about free loans or free money. So you have to know all this information before you apply. All right, and here's a case study with USC and Cal Poly. So they only meet 58% of the needs. They were $5,200 short. Okay, so what ended up happening here is you think, oh wow, $55,000 at USC. Let's just go to Cal Poly. Well, if you're thinking you're going to save $35,000, I'm sorry, $25,000. I'm right. $35,000. You're sadly mistaken because not only, unless you're in the engineering program, you're going to be there for more than 4 years. Okay, so the total cost here was only $19,000, and they're going to get out sooner. So you're going to get out in about 4 years here at USC as opposed to Cal Poly. All right, so now you had the unmet need, the self-help aid. You had self-help here of $11,000, but the gift is $36,000. So we got to measure all these things and add them up. Each school is different. Each family is different. Each student is different. Okay, so we talked about negotiating. Some schools miss award, under award. You saw the result of the negotiation letter there. We talked about financial aid leveraging. Sometimes schools will figure out how little they need to give you in order to get you there. So that's also important. Okay. The way you get more need-based aid is to legally, morally, and ethically rearrange your affairs to get more money by learning and applying and implementing the legally established rules. Not everybody applies everything we suggest. That's okay. But I'll show you an example of a family that could have gotten a lot more free money and save a significant amount of money, but they wanted to do their own thing. They did get some free money, but they could have gotten a lot more. Again, it's just like taking advantage of the tax code. There are legal loopholes to save you money. If you don't want to pay more taxes than you should, most people don't. So there's ways to save money on taxes. The same way is similar to paying for college. There's ways to take advantage of it. Okay. Now, the other things that we're going to get into now, all the Hope credits, lifetime learning credits, penalty-free IRA withdrawals. We don't really recommend that people do that. But if you're going to do it the right way. Some people do it anyway. I had a family in last year. They were liquidating and selling off their rental property to get their son through Penn. They had rental properties in the East Bay, and they were liquidating them left and right. And there are different ways to pay for it, but and again, I'm not going to try and force anything on you. All I'm going to do is we show our clients numbers. If you want to apply it, fine. If not, that's fine too. There are more than enough people that we can have a huge impact for. So again, there's no pressure when you come in for your one-on-one consultation. There are a lot of ways to reduce your college costs just by taking advantage of the tax credits and tax planning. Most people, they go to their accountant and they just fill out forms. They're not really doing any planning. If you're not doing tax planning, you need a better accountant. If it's appropriate, of course. Okay. Now, 529 plans. You have to have somebody that knows what they're talking about, and probably not the person that sold it to you. Look at those. Some of our clients, one client called it a 229 plan. Some people, we started off, we had about 100,000, and now it's down to 60,000. I mean, these are real situations. As a matter of fact, I even had a stockbroker who lost $40,000 in his college fund. So we don't really recommend 529 plans unless the children are really, really young and you have time to make up for any losses. But we want to guarantee that all your children, that you can pay for college, comfortably pay for college for all your children. Okay. Now, the other thing is, when you're looking at, if a financial aid officer is looking at your package and you've got money set aside, now you may hear, oh, the government formula is only 2.4 or 5.8, whatever the percentage is they're going to assess of that amount. If there's a family that doesn't have money specifically set aside for college, and you have money specifically set aside for college and it's exposed to the formula, who do you think is more likely to get the money? Okay, the other thing is, those guidelines you need to make sure the school abides by the federal guidelines. And when it comes to 529 plans, they can do whatever they want with their own money. And again, most of the money is going to come from the school. Okay, so you need to keep that in mind. And these are taken from the profile. These are profile questions. It says, enter the total value of assets held in college savings plans. Why do you think they want to know that information? So they can assess it. Okay? So make sure you know what you're doing with that 529 plan before you apply for aid. And getting all the credits, what are the restrictions? If these things apply to you, we can go over those later. Now, if you're going to have somebody help you, make sure, whether it's us, someone else, another college planner, or CPA, or if somebody says, hey, I can help you fill out the forms. Anybody can fill out the forms. It's filling out the forms correctly. Okay? I think there's somebody that'll counsel you on filling out the forms for $35. That may or may not help. I don't know. It says these are the questions you want to ask. Can you help me lower my EFC and maximize my eligibility for aid? Can you help me pick the schools that'll give me the best aid package? Can you help me fill out the FAFSA profile line by line? Actually, we do it for you if you choose to work with us. If you don't, we'll give you enough information at the end of the free consultation or complimentary consultation, because we normally charge for it. But if you've gone through the workshop or gone through this process, we don't charge for it. Now, we also help you negotiate. You need to know, will they help you negotiate? I showed you an example of more money, an example of extra aid we're able to get for a family. Can you show me how to pay for college on a tax favored basis? I don't think I mentioned tax favored basis earlier. That's an oversight on my part. That's huge. Okay, not only is it looking at your cash flow, but paying for it on a tax favored basis. How to pay for college, what we call 100-cent dollars, as opposed to 70-cent and 65-cent and 80-cent dollars, after taxes. So there's different ways to do that. Now, if you make too much money, again, there's three pillars here. You've got the financial aid pillar, got the cash flow pillar, and the non-need based aid pillar as well. Okay, so it's cash flow, financial aid, and then paying for it with a lot of tax savings. So there's a lot of different ways to skin this beast, and there's what you just need to take advantage of the best options. Okay, now you can do it yourself. There's several books out there that can help you do it. There's probably about 4 or 5 books. Paying for college without sacrificing your retirement. That's one book, but you may not get specific information. There's some things there that they leave out. You can look on Amazon and find the books there. Now, this is another key point. Good tax planning and financial aid planning and good tax planning and good financial planning can sometimes be terrible college financial planning. Okay? Now, your accountant has to fill out or get involved with the business supplement form if you're self-employed. Okay? And just like my accountant says, yeah, I'm an expert in accounting, not financial aid. It's a totally different beast. Okay? And as a matter of fact, we have some accountants as clients. Okay? So it's a little known but very important niche. We do income and asset planning. We help you pick the best schools, fill out the forms, and negotiate with schools. We do offer a guarantee. I mean, I won't take on anybody that I can't save, at least at a minimum 3 to 4 or 5 times what you're paying us. Okay, you need to start planning as early as possible. You can't save for retirement. When you're start saving when you're 55 if you're plan to retire at age 58. So this needs to be done when your children are born. And then we have some families that after we go through all this and say, well, my son or daughter's a freshman, maybe it's too early. No, it's not. You need to, all the maneuvers, financial maneuvers, they need to be done as soon as possible. As a matter of fact, and I don't know why I didn't do this before, but we're going to get some testimonials in here about families that said, as a matter of fact, the family that I showed you the aid increase, she said, where were you 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago? We needed to get this done. They came to me when their son was a senior. Their college funding could have been set because they were making a lot of financial mistakes that they thought were right. So we helped them there. So you need to get this done as soon as possible. Don't wait. The ideal time is when your children, you don't want to start when they're seniors. I mean, we still do it, but that's what we call emergency planning when they're late in the junior year. Or they're starting their junior year, or January of the junior year, you're on the financial aid radar. Okay, from January of the junior year to December of the senior year. Okay, so January to December, you're on the financial aid radar. You need to start making maneuvers before that happens. So freshman, sophomore year is important. Okay, we've gone over this before. Next step is to fill out the evaluation form and then get scheduled for an appointment. Okay, this is a list of things we do, and some of these may or may not apply to you. We have ACT and SAT prep, college and chances of admission reports, so that way you'll know exactly what your chances are of getting in there into each school on your list. If you're not satisfied, we do offer a guarantee, but we only take on families that we can really help. So the other thing is, are there any strategies that you can take advantage of to help make paying for college more easily affordable? Those are things that you need to do. If that's something you really need to do, you need to check yes on the box, or send us an email and request an appointment so that we can go over your information. Now, I do have rules for this. In order to guarantee a spot, this is our busy time. It needs to be scheduled within 2 weeks because we're doing a lot of, in order for us to guarantee you a spot. I mean, we guarantee a spot for 2 weeks. Other than that, especially at this time of the year from now until, February, March, we're going to be really busy. So we need a number to contact you between 9 and 12 in the morning. That's the best time for the lady that schedules my appointments to get you on the schedule. I can't guarantee that there'll be free consultation spots left. I'm probably going to take more time off this year. So that's also important. The other thing is both parents must be present. If not, if you show up, unless they're in Iraq or Afghanistan or incapacitated, both parents need to be present because I'm giving away my time for free. And if both parents aren't present, it is a waste of my time. So again, you're going to get a lot of information that's going to help you. So the only thing that I ask, since I'm giving my time away for free, is that you abide by these guidelines. So at the end of the meeting, there's only going to be a couple of things, one or two outcomes. You'll get the information you're looking for. You can do it on your own. You decide that you want to do part, you want us to help you with some, or you want absolutely nothing to do with it and you want us to do, and we'll take care of everything for you. Either way is okay with us. If you don't want us to do it for you, you want to handle it on your own, that's fine. The only thing that we recommend, and this is tongue in cheek, but it's important and it's true. A fool with a plan is better than a genius with none. You need to make a plan, and that's what we help you do. That'll be the end of our session today. If you have any questions, this is a recording that's going online. You can there's a box for you to fill out questions, or you can email questions to Rich, R-I-C-H, at cacollegeplanners.com. Rich at cacollegeplanners.com. We'll have someone answer your question and get back to you. And again, the one-on-one consultation, it's a continuation of this workshop specifically geared to you. I did say I was going to show you what you get. Just bear with me for a second. Okay. Now, here's an example of what you're going to get at the end of the appointment. We'll calculate your EFC for you. Like this particular family here, their EFC was $59,000 a year at a public school and $82,000 at a private school. They had more assets. Private schools look at your assets more so than the public schools do. So that's why there's a big discrepancy there. Now, with some planning, we got their EFC down to about $13,000 a year. Okay. So this is what you get. We'll tell you every single thing that we can help you do. Then you'll also get a report like this for the number one school on your list, so whatever that school may be. Now, once you become a client, we do this for all your schools. So we go through whether it's a FAFSA or a profile school, what percentage of need they meet. So, their initial need, they had no need at first. By going through and implementing all the recommendations, their adjusted need was 41,000. And we'll also show you what the average SAT and ACT scores are. Okay. As well as the GPAs. We'll show you which schools have merit money and which schools do not. So you need to know that as well, because above and beyond, in some cases above and beyond your financial need, there could be merit-based money available, and we'll tell you exactly which merit-based scholarships you should ask for. Hey, my kid qualified for this scholarship, and you can apply for it and meet those deadlines. Okay, so we'll help you project the future cost, so that way if your kid's going to school in 2013 at a school like Stanford, we'll project all those costs and see what your chances are for getting financial aid. So then this way, let's just say, for instance, Stanford's a profile school, or we're just using this as an example. We can go over your initial need, your adjusted need, the change in your EFC, and then figure out, okay, well, your EFC plus your estimated unmet need should be about $13,000. You should get about $36,000 in financial aid. And that's on average. So this way will help you. You may get some student loans and work study. You may have to work a little bit. And when we're talking about work study, they're not digging ditches. They're not real difficult jobs for the most part. So again, we'll help you project all your costs, get these estimates in order, make sure you're not under awarded, and then come up with a plan to pay your share of the college costs. Okay, and the best way to do that. Okay, the other thing that we offer, there's student counseling. These things are put together by people that are much smarter than I am. A personalized student interview done by a certified counselor. Scholarship eligibility report. I think that's really, really important. And then we also have an SAT prep course that helps help you answer the questions correctly. It's not a bunch of mind-numbing information. There's two different ways to do it. If they really need classroom time, we have that available. But most of our students, we go through our course and to figure out how to answer the questions and increase their scores. Okay, so that's part of our platinum package, and we'll tell you if you don't need the platinum package. We'll tell you if you need the basic package. We'll go over that as well. Then your chances of enrollment at up to 4 colleges, including Ivy League schools, in case those are some schools on your list. So that way we're not going to use generic terms like reach or safety schools. You'll know whether or not you have an 83% chance of getting into Stanford or a 35% chance. So that way you can plan accordingly and not waste your time and have to reapply. These are our basic services. Most of these we've already gone over. So now our fees range anywhere from $495 to $39.95. Most of our clients are right in the $2,400 to $2,700 range on average. But again, it depends on your situation. If we can help you, and we agree to work together, there may not be a fit. If there's a fit, we may work together. If not, then we won't. So again, if you want the consultation, send us the form, send us the email. You can fax it, email it to us, or just give us a call and we'll get it scheduled. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call, 925-394-4380, or email Rich, R-I-C-H, at cacollegeplanners.com. I hate this fucking computer. Hi, this is Richard Patrick. We're going to go over several ways to help you legally, morally, and ethically arrange your financial situation to pay for college with as little out of your own pocket as possible. There are several different ways to do that. There are 3 pillars. We're going to talk about the 3 pillars today that comprise of your college funding. We call it the tripod. You have need-based aid, you have merit-based aid, and you have student planning, or academic planning, which means there's 3 ways to get as much money as possible and lower your costs. One way you can save a lot of money is by taking advantage of all the tax provisions. And we're not talking about being needy or having to qualify for government programs. The large majority of our Bay Area clients do not qualify for a lot of the government aid. However, there are other ways to significantly lower your college costs. We save our clients a minimum of $24,000 over the time that their children will be in college. Oftentimes, we save them that much in the first year. I'll give you an example. We have a Bay Area family, a Marin County family, whom just by structuring their portion of the college costs correctly, we're going to save them over $80,000 over the next 4 years. That's not including financial aid. We did get them $15,000 in financial aid for their first year, and it is a process that must be renewed and done every single year. You must apply every year. So we're looking at over $90,000, $95,000 in economic impact that we were able to create for one client. And again, we'll show you some real examples. Some of you may think that's outrageous or outlandish, but those are real numbers with a real family. And again, we only work with people that for whom we can create a large impact. But you're going to get a lot of information here today. So again, please save your questions. Email us your questions or enter them in the frequently asked question box, and we'll get started. First, we'll talk about the parents' areas of where we get most of our questions, where most people are concerned. They don't want to be saddled with student loan debt. They don't want their children to be saddled with debt. They don't want to change their lifestyle, sacrifice their retirement. So that's why most families come to us. And we have everybody from lawyers and accountants, professors, CPAs, folks who run nonprofits, librarians, business owners, commercial real estate, folks who are in commercial real estate. It doesn't matter. And oftentimes, if you look at the cost of college, you're looking at at least $150,000 in most cases, at a minimum 80,000 if you're looking at a CSU and you're looking at graduating in 4 years, which most people don't. You're looking at a minimum of $80,000, on up to $250,000 or $300,000 in some cases. So that's a huge nut to crack, and our job is to help you get that as low as possible so you don't have to pay that much money out of pocket. And even if you do, what's the best way to do it so you can save thousands?